Today you join me on another of London's small rivers. This is the rather neglected Hogsmill River in southwest London. It's a chalk stream rising in Surrey and flowing for 6 miles into the River Thames at Kingston. It's a freezing cold January day, so I'm hoping to hop along a few swims starting at the top, working my way down to my favourite swim at the lower end of the stretch. I began by freelining maggots under the snags where the chub are often sat, but they're very spooked here. It's a very small, shallow river. You can see from the underwater footage there's very little rubbish and litter spread about, and it's very clear, which was good to see considering this snakes through a public park and many public areas. It was a really positive sign. As I made my way down the river, I switched to float to cover a bit more ground. There's so little flow, and the only few fish that I had seen were very quickly spooked. You can see how vital it is here to stay well back from the edge. Any fish that are under your feet will become really wary if they see or hear you. Towards the bottom of the stretch is this really nice inlet, and if the water wasn't just a few inches deep, it would be a really good holding area for the fish. As we pan around, you can see that it leads to these 2 tunnels, which are a really interesting feature. Again, the water is still really shallow, but you do get a much more urban feel in case that's your thing. Now you can only get to this stretch by wading through the tunnels, and it contains a rather interesting feature. The water on the left rushes through down a series of mini weirs, and yet on the other side of the wall, the water is low, clear and completely calm. To make my life easier when I'm fishing, and especially wading, I barely take any equipment. A single rod and reel, all wrapped in an unhooking mat, a shoulder bag and a bait pouch around my waist. I find that if you have a hand free at all times, if the worst happens and you fall or you trip, you can always try and support yourself. I've never actually fished the fast flowing sections on the left, and I don't know if they do actually contain fish, but at the end of the run is a deeper pool where a lot of the fish congregate. I often put a lot of the maggots in the little runoff section on the left and allow them to drift across into the right. And usually as I'm wading along here, I'll see a lot of chub dart out from under the cover of snags on the right hand side, but I didn't actually see any on this occasion. I had my first couple of quick bites after around 10 minutes of feeding the swim. I didn't connect with any fish, so I shallowed up a bit just in case they were taking it on the drop. A slightly better cast at the back of the eddy under the overhanging trees, and I got a much more positive bite. We were into our fish. Having the landing net tucked into the belt around my waist comes in really handy in these situations. You don't even have to do anything but extend the net handle to claim your prize. A chub of around 2 or 3 pounds lay at the bottom of the landing net, and for a freezing cold January day I was more than pleased. It's slightly smaller than average for this little pool, but for the conditions I wasn't complaining. It's rare that you catch more than one fish from this area. I did have a couple of casts, but I couldn't feel my fingers at this point, so I made my way back to the car looking for fish as I went. If you're ever in the area of southwest London, definitely have a go on the Hogsmill, as it does contain some really nice fish.